Yo, what's up, guys? It's Ryan, and today we're going to be going through how I mix, master, and produce kind of chill guitar-based hip hop. I've got this track that I'm kind of set to release in the next couple days. We're just going to run through it. I'm going to show you how I do things because uh, this track is pretty typical on almost every front for what I usually do. So I feel like it's a very good example to run through. Um, I'll let you hear some of it just so you can know what you're getting into. But here we go. All right. So this track is like 99% done. There's still a few small tweaks that I'm like hearing and changing on the way, but yeah, this is basically it. So I'm going to start with the top of the project and go down. So start with drums and then go down to the guitars. So yeah, what I've noticed with this sort of style is 99% of your drum sound is just picking the right sample. I don't really do a whole ton to drums usually. I just try to find the best sounding sample straight up so I don't have to like sit there and tweak it for an hour, you know. So this is the drum sound. Super simple, super kind of loop based. And in the beginning, this EQ is on, kind of giving it like an old school telephone vibe. But we just jump into it. This drum rack right here is most of the sounds. It's taking a second. Like this is most of it right here. So the kick has just a bit of an EQ on it. It had a lot of high end. I kind of wanted to tame it down because I had a lot of other instruments kind of occupying that space. And that's literally it for that. The snare. The snare is the most involved one. I have this EQ, which, like, I know I just said that I try to find the best sounding samples so I don't have to, like, change stuff, but this one just had like some super harsh higher frequencies. So I took them down very surgically. This one, there was a lot of, I didn't want to make this one any messier than it already was, right? So this one is just the side. So like the stereo image of the, not the stereo image, the side as opposed to the mid information. I'm ducking some of the high side information. Yeah. Then after that I've got a compressor. Kind of just tightens it up a little bit. Then I've got this FabFilter Pro R. For just a little bit of like space around it, you know. Without it, it feels super dry, and sometimes that's like the appropriate thing to do, but I just didn't think so for this particular track. Then on top of that, I've got this clap, and it's literally just me clapping in the microphone. I've got a compressor because I'm a really garbage clapper. Like every single one was a different volume. So I have a compressor on it, and I have this EQ. Take out some of the low end from the mic just picking up like my fan or whatever. Boost some of the body of the clap right there. Take out some of the annoying frequencies and boost some of the high end sizzle. Yeah, super simple. This shaker I also played. I have an egg shaker. You can get one on Sweetwater for like $2 or $3. I would highly recommend it because it's way easier to just record one than it is to sit there and try to program a realistic one. And it's $2, so you can't really beat that. Again, a low pass, just because mics pick up a lot of random low end. And then this sort of EQ, because there was a few like super harsh frequencies. Yeah. A compressor, just to kind of level it out just a little bit. As you can see, there's barely any gain reduction. I just wanted it pretty level. And then a chorus, just to kind of gives it some stereo, and it also softens up the high end as well. Then way over here, I've got a ride cymbal. Has this EQ and a compressor. And then all that together is just kind of that. Then next I've got this sub, which is literally just a sine wave from operator. I've got a compressor just so those like spikes right there aren't audible. Got a little bit of a saturator, which just gives it a bit of grit, just a little bit. And then these compressors side chained to the kick and snare. Like you can hear it kind of duck a little bit when the kick and snare hit. If I over exaggerate it, you can really hear it. And I'm just doing it super slightly on this particular one. Then for the pads, I've got three different things. So I'll go through the individual elements and then go to the group of what I'm doing. So I've got the Maverick, which is kind of just stock with a little bit softer tone, but other than that, it's like almost 100% soft. Compressing it makes every hit the same level, essentially. Then I've got this EQ. Brightens it up a little bit, makes it sound pretty nice. And these are all playing the same thing, potentially in different octaves, but they're all the same thing. So this piano is being sent to the delay and reverb channels pretty heavily, and I'll go over those in a second. I've got this Rhodes layered with it. It's being sent to the same channels. It's a Lounge Lizard, just this stock, like you open it up and it's that preset. This EQ. Just to kind of thin it out a little bit, because without it took up way too much way too much space in the low mids area. No, I didn't want that necessarily. Then I've got these strings, which is the String Ensemble Symphony Essentials from Native Instruments. I just got this, and it's actually really good. It's not like the pimped out version that is also available for like twice the price. It's just the basic version. It actually sounds like really good for like $200, I think it was. And it has everything you would need for if you're not doing like actual symphony scoring and like movie scoring and stuff. This is perfectly fine for anybody. So for me, it's absolutely perfect. So use that. Then I threw it through a compressor because it's a pad, so everything, or I wanted everything to be level. I then distorted it a little bit. With Sound Toys Decapitator, just to give it some of that like old school grit. Then I did this EQ to make it fit with the piano and the Rhodes. There was a lot of, you can hear there's a lot of high. So yeah, that's what I did for that. And then on the entire channel, I have this EQ. I have a virtual mix rack. It's just kind of like 1 to 4 dB of gain reduction at the max. It's like a bus compressor sort of thing. Then I have sidechain to kick and snare, and then also sidechain to the guitar group. So if we look at this, so based on what the guitars are doing, it's kind of determining how much of the pad signal is going through. So if there's a ton of guitars going on, which like there are usually, like right here there's, what is that? There's 5 guitar tracks going at the same time, and that's just a lot because guitars are full spectrum instruments, and so are pads, so they get in the way a lot. So I put this sidechain compressor on it so that when the guitars are up and like in the forefront, the pad kind of gets brought down a little bit. And if you look, there's probably only like 3 or 4 dB of gain reduction. I can't really see because there's not there's no numbers, but it's enough that when the guitars are going full force, it gets brought down a little bit. And then also when the guitars are kind of like sustained and dying off, the pad gets brought up to kind of take its place a little bit. So yeah, that's what I did for the pads. And now for the guitars. So I broke it into 3 parts, I guess. There's the verse guitars, and the bridge, and there's also the solo guitar inside of the verse guitars. So we got these RC guitars right here. This one's getting high passed pretty aggressively. And then it's also getting compressed because it's like a funky part, and that's just usually what you do to funk guitars. Make sure they're all level. Then the other one, again, getting high passed relatively aggressively. And then on the entire bus, got this RC color, adding some noise, adding some wobble, driving it a little bit, and then also adding some wear and flutter. the main thing coming out of this is the saturation from the distort. So it's a very subtle effect, but I think it works. Alright, we've got this sort of thing, which is just real fast, kind of my philosophy of this sort of genre in recording. I typically, the traditional thing to do when you're recording guitars is to double track the guitars, and then like pan one hard right, pan one hard left, so you have two recordings of the same part on the left and the right ear. In this genre, I found that really kind of, it muddies the mix a lot. And when you want to add all of these like ad-lib guitars, you know, like there's a lot of different, every single one of these is a different part. So when you want to layer those up, it gets super muddy and just nonsense, or chaotic, I think is probably the better word. It gets super chaotic, it's impossible to mix, and then you just get frustrated and you quit. So what I do is every part only gets tracked once, and then I kind of just set it somewhere in the stereo field and like just tweak based on where I think it needs to go. So I know traditionally you double track, but for this, like, I would actually recommend to not double track because it makes life way easier. So we have this part right here, which is a higher version of so it's like a higher end version of that. A little bit of a compressor, just a little bit. Only 3 dB gain reduction. Then we have this sort of EQ, because there's a lot of extra mid and high information that I didn't necessarily need. It's getting sent to the reverb and the delay channels. This is the lower version of it, and it's kind of like the main rhythm guitar. And as you can see, this one's panned pretty hard left, and this one's panned pretty hard right. And up here in the other guitars, each one of them is panned like relatively hard and in either direction. So this actually just has this slight EQ to kind of bring it in and make it a little smaller. Because my guitar records, I have a humbucker for my neck pickup, so it records in pretty strong, and typically this genre is recorded on strats or single coil pickups, so my guitar records in way stronger than the typical guitar, like a Strat or like a P90, Jazzmaster, or like a Jazz Box or something like that. So that's why I do so much work to kind of make my sound smaller, which seems a little counterintuitive sometimes, but it's just to fit the genre. Then we have this, which is me using my infinite sustain on my Strymon Big Sky reverb pedal, and then it has a shimmer, just adding a little bit. And if I bring this up in volume so you can hear it, it's just like an extra pad, sort of. So that's kind of all that's going on in the verse up until the solo, where these guitars get cut off. And then in the solo, every single one of them is like the same setting, so I only processed the group, or rather this little lead in right here. It has reverb on it, Pro R, and the mix goes from 100 to 0 on this little lead in, but the rest of it is processed by the group. So I've got this thing. Which, as you can see, is adding a little bit of kind of waviness to the pitch, kind of like it's on vinyl, sort of. A little bit of noise and a lot of tube saturation. I really love how this sounds. If we turn it off. Like, it just has a really nice, subtle sort of push sound to it. Then after that, it's a relatively hard compressor. Yeah, pretty standard. Decapitator. Just saturates it a little bit, adds some more grit. Pro R at 11% mix, and actually Pro R should be right there. Alright, so then we have Echo Boy from Sound Toys, just doing some dual echo. You can hear it. Just some extra delay. Also, Echo Boy is fantastic. If you've never tried it or heard of it or looked it up, look it up. It's 100% probably the best delay effect like ever for a VST. It's like $200. I got it on sale for $50, and I don't regret it at all. So highly recommend it. And then at the very end, we have this EQ. Which, again, same sort of thing, just making my sound a little bit smaller on that. And then it's getting sent to the reverb channel a little bit. And then it's the same sort of things for the bridge guitars over here. There is one cool thing that's happening over here, though. There's that. I'm still evaluating Fab Filter MB. Doing that. Just simple multi-band stuff. And then an overall compressor. But this part right here, or these two parts, I guess it would be. So this part right here, it's cool for like a music theory reason. So the song is in 4/4, pretty obviously. But this part right here is actually in 7, repeating over and over and over and over again. So we have this sort of 7/4 feel, which just adds for like an interesting sort of groove. Everything else is in 4/4, but that one thing is 7/4. Then this thing right here, let me make sure. Oh, so these two parts, rather, sorry, are actually being sidechained to another part. So these two are relatively background parts. And then we have this lead part right here. So I have it sidechained. These both are sidechained to this part. So whenever the lead part is playing, they automatically get ducked a little bit, because without it, it kind of gets a little hectic, and it just needed to be cleaned up a little bit. So yeah, those are all of the elements. The reverb channel is literally just Pro R with these sort of settings. If we solo it. It's just like a quick short reverb, which sounds really good. Then we have this delay, which is an H delay stereo. Just adds some like ambience and body to mainly the pads and mainly that piano you can hear. Alright, and then on the master channel I've got a limiter just in case things get crazy. I've got this thing which is triggered, it's a mono EQ that I can trigger by hitting the M key, which is super helpful with mixing. Then I've got an ozone 8, which let it load. And I've got an equalizer, and on the side information, I'm cutting out all the low end. Where I leave it only in the mid. Cleans up the mix very nicely. Highly recommend you try that out. You can do it in FabFilter, you can do it in Ozone. I'm pretty sure you can do it with even stock Ableton EQ. I just leave it for the last thing. Dynamics, this compressor. Not sure if it's doing anything, honestly, but it's there. I think that these are like the stock settings. I've got this exciter. Add some saturation to some of the bands. I got this imager, which just kind of opens it up, right? Like without it, doesn't sound bad, but it does feel like everything's kind of focused in to like this, a little bit closer to the center. But with this, spreads it out a little bit and gives it a pretty nice spread. As you can see, I kept the low end just straight down the middle. If we solo that, it's literally just one line straight down the middle, but then the rest of it kind of gets to spread out and breathe a little bit. Maximizer to bring up the volume if we turn this off. Super quiet. And then IRC3 crisp, that's the algorithm I'm using, and it works fine for me. Then I have this thing which just helps. It's supposed to show you where you're supposed to be, but it's recommending a lot of weird things that this track doesn't necessarily need. So I have references in here. Zoology, I'm not going to play because of copyright, that I'm referencing more so than that. But yeah, that's this track. It'll be out in the next couple days. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, anything like that. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.